Well, good afternoon. Thank you very much for being here on a Sunday. I want to talk to you about a couple of things that have taken place and sort of what led up to them taking place. About 3 weeks ago, I sat in the office of Secretary of Interior in D.C., and we talked about various things, and nothing was mentioned about anything in the works regarding anything involving ANWR. We had a good, cordial conversation, met for the first time, agreed to have an open line of communication.
Hard time hearing.
Sorry. Friday evening, I got a call that the secretary wanted to talk to me yesterday at 11 o'clock. That time came and went without a call, and it was rescheduled to 8 o'clock this morning. 8 o'clock this morning, I had a call with Secretary Jewell. I should back up. Yesterday, there was a call with Senator Sullivan and Senator Murkowski. Coordinated a call me yesterday morning, late morning. And this morning, my conversation with Secretary Jewell, before that, there had been released a press release at 7 this morning, D.C. time, talking about issues associated with ANWR and the move for additional protection, in their words, not mine, on ANWR. This morning's call lasted about an hour with Secretary Jewell. I went through a number of things. At one point, I asked her for an address, and she said, "What for?" I said, "So where I can send the invoice for our cost of education and our cost of health care, because you are not following the intent of the Statehood Compact," which, interestingly enough, she was not familiar with 3 weeks ago when I sat in her office and explained to her why we were an owner state and talked about the Statehood Compact, and she said, "I was not aware of that." And so I was a little surprised by that. So my discussion with her today was very frank. I said, "I need to send you an invoice for our cost of doing business in Alaska because you are taking away our ability to earn a living." She did not give me an address, but I know the address. So a few minutes after that call was over, I spoke with House and Senate leadership, which was prearranged. I spoke with them at 9 this morning to let them know my call with Secretary Jewell, the substance of it, and just to make sure they knew what I knew about what was happening on their move. Clearly, in 1980, when President Carter signed ANILCA, it was to set aside 100 million acres on the Conservation Act, and it was supposed to be Section 101D refers to as the No More clause, that this would not happen again, and basically said that there would be no more without we require an act of Congress to do that. What I believe they have done is they are treating this so that it does require an act of Congress, but by what the act that they have taken, they can treat this as though they had received the act of Congress up until Congress does not act. In other words, they can, because I specifically asked her that. I said, this is sort of a preemptive strike that you can go out and do some additional restrictions while Congress would consider this. She said, that's correct. We don't want, I believe her words may have been, we don't want things messed up while we're working on this, I think were her words. So the call didn't go well. I didn't believe it was not a comfortable call. I don't think for anybody it was for she or I. I'm pretty angry. I'm very angry that this is happening. I explained to her when I was in D.C. 3 weeks ago our fiscal situation and our dependence upon resource development for our economy, and that didn't seem to have much impact on, at least based upon the actions that she has announced today. Supposedly it will be released tonight. Maybe it's already been released for all I know. I just landed a bit ago, so I think it may have already been released as far as what they're doing. And I know the Washington Post article came out this morning, so it must have been tied to something. I'm all about the no more clause. No more cups of coffee. I did reach for that. I did stay true to my my commitment that the first thing I reached for was a cup of coffee. I have consulted with the Attorney General this morning. We're going to review all options, and I got to tell you, I'm not leaning towards a piece of litigation right now. I'm a little more aggressive than that, I think. So we will gather our team, and we will have a plan of action of what to do. I'm very concerned about this this message that it sends to the companies that have been looking at a movement to ANWR at some point. And having just finished a State of the State, State of the Budget speech, when I talked about ANWR as the something we need to develop in order to get more production. I explained to her again today that I'm the governor of a state that has an oil pipeline that's 3/4 empty. And that's not a good feeling when we're at a $10 million a day deficit. And so she didn't seem to have any suggestions, any help for that. But, and it was, I expressed my strong disappointment that this had not been discussed with us beforehand in some way, that we were hearing about this the way we're hearing about it. That was the majority of what we discussed. There'll be something on Wednesday on offshore that's coming out, an announcement. It does not appear that it will impact the areas that initially that are under exploration now. It will impact a couple of leases, but those leases that are there will not be withdrawn. They will not be, so they would be allowed to remain. I don't have the specifics of that. Again, this will come out on Wednesday. But if those leases are withdrawn for any reasons, or whoever holds them, I know that I believe Shell holds one, and I think Conoco may own another. If they, for any reason, are released or turned back, they would not be reissued. This would be basically the same as and again, I don't have the specific area, so I don't want to misspeak. But
I'm listening to Governor Walker. Excuse me. This is Monty Bonnet, Channel 11 TV. I'm sorry to interrupt. Someone is speaking, and we can't even hear the governor.
Okay.
No, we cannot.
We'll give you a video of the press conference later, okay? We're going to have to put you guys on mute.
Thank you.
So there'll be more released on that. It's a 5-year plan that is going to be released on Wednesday on offshore. Her words, not mine, said that she did not feel it was an area that was under particular interest from the industry. There's no active interest in that area at this point. And then the third is that the thing that you talked about a bit, that she was still in negotiations on GMT1 on those issues, still inspected that, something on that to be out to negotiation with Conoco, and that would be out probably in early February. So those are the three things we discussed. The one that took up 90% of the time was the discussion about the ANWR restrictions, and it did not start my day well. I was very appreciative of the my discussion with the Senate, House and Senate leadership. They were fully supportive of and equally concerned at what message this sends to our state, and very supportive of listening to what further actions we may have in mind. I think we have something on Tuesday morning that we're going to get together to discuss that further. So that's my day so far. So I just wanted you to have a chance to hear what I wanted to talk with. I anticipated that this may have could have taken place yesterday, but because the secretary postponed due to travel schedules, she at the last minute postponed the call. I wanted to talk to her personally before I talk to you, because I always like to rather than hear something secondhand, I like to convey a personal conversation. This is a significant shift in what I thought would be perhaps a different kind of relationship with the Secretary, but it's clear that our interests are not of much concern. I'll put it that way. So it's they can't do what they're doing. They know they won't get Congress's support. I think it's partially because of perhaps a change in Congress, perhaps, but it allows them to just reach out just one more layer of source of removal, and I think it's a significant step in the wrong direction on their part with the state of Alaska, and I did caution her that. I'm a pretty aggressive person when it comes to my state, and so it didn't end well. I'll put it that way. But she heard it loud and clear. It was professional, but she did not have to read between the lines about how I felt about the message she was delivering. Happy to take questions.
This is Alex from the Alaska Dispatch. What would you do that's more aggressive than litigation if you're not leaning forward?
You know, there's a couple of things. I think other states need to know what's happening to us as we get ready to go to the National Governors Conference. I hadn't thought about going. The tentative plan was to go to the National Governors Conference. Now I am going to go. And I'm going to say, has anybody else been dealt with like this? You know, there used to be a group called the Sagebrush Rebellion years ago. A bunch of Western states said, you know, enough's enough. I'm going to use this no more clause. No more. So I think it's time to reach out to, rather than reach out to a 4 or 5 or 6 year lengthy litigation process. Maybe it's time to reach out to other states and say, anybody else feeling a little bit picked on? And I'm going to guess there's going to be a few out there going to say, yeah, us too. Maybe they want to join this no more clause and say no more. So I'm going to start with that. I'm going to start with the public and say, you know, and we are, you know, unless the, you know, the federal government will go in and take care of people we've been at war with afterwards better than what better than they treat us, and they, you know, they are taking our economy away from us piece by piece. And I was here during the NILCA negotiation. That was a big pill to swallow as far as that amount of acreage taken away. But then you go beyond that, you know, because they know full well they're not going to get congressional support for that. But it's just for that period of time they do this, they take it off the map. So I'm going to reach out to other states. I'm going to reach out to other governors. I'm going to talk to the Western Governors Conference. I'm going to say, let's stand united on some of this stuff. And while this is a situation somewhat unique to Alaska, every state, I believe, has got to have some sort of overreach in their own area where the federal governments come in and committed a significant overreach. Perhaps not as significant as we have. I mean, to me, this would be like if they said, you know, we want to keep Hawaii pristine, no more tourism in Hawaii. I mean, that's in essence what they're saying to us, and so I think Hawaii would react pretty aggressively, and so we're gonna react appropriately. So there could be litigation, Alec. Don't get me wrong, but that's not my first choice. My first choice is to let the public know exactly what these guys are doing, and it's just really wrong. I'm sorry.
Kirk Johnson, New York Times. Do you think this could affect the current budget situation by shifting energy company decisions or in other ways, or is this down the road?
You know, I think I would hope not, and I'm not sounding the alarm to impact that. But I guess I want the companies that are here to know how concerned we are when they start making it difficult for the companies that are here, that we want to come here, whatnot. So I want them to know. That's why we didn't just put out a press release and say, you know, interpret it how you will. I think that's important that they know how angry we are. So.
Sorry, brother.
Jackie Slater, KTVA. You were just there and you felt that things were going in a certain direction. Why do you think that they made this announcement now?
Well, I'm not sure. I'd say I felt it was going in a certain direction. Just I thought we had some sort of a dialogue that there would be a phone call. There'd already been one instance before. I can't remember exactly what it was that I didn't get notified on something, and I said then, no more surprises, and here this comes along. So, I think it was in the works for quite a while, obviously, and they chose for whatever reason to not share it, and. So I think it's the final 2 years. They're going to do all they can in their final 2 years, and this is just. There was some anticipation before Christmas. There was going to be what's sometimes called a Christmas surprise from Department of Interior, and I asked her about that on a call I had. Actually from Fairbanks a few weeks before that. I said, is there going to be a Christmas surprise this year? Sometimes they come out before the end of the year and give something, and it's never a good gift. I don't mean it in a good way. It's always a lump of coal of some sort. So nothing wrong with coal, but so anyway, I asked about that, and she says, no, there's nothing coming down the pike. And then this comes down in a month later. So this didn't just happen. This has been in the works for quite a while. So extremely disappointed.
Can you clarify on the offshore leases? You said the two that you think are owned by Conoco and Shell. As you understand, those would not be affected on Wednesdays?
They would not be, because they would not be unless they were, for some reason, released or withdrawn, or if they came back to the federal government, then it would not be put back out to lease. And so it would be a similar designation of that took place off of Bristol Bay.
The other areas outside.
Right. But I don't have the exact map of what area they're talking about. She seemed to think that they were not areas of particular strong interest. And again, I'm told this is not the area that Shell has been aggressively working towards.
Okay. Could I ask about the increased oil and gas you mentioned? What are our options for that? And then it sounds like you're talking about a state-owned oil development company, which I know was something that was discussed during the campaign. Can you tell me more about?
I'm looking at ways that we can be a buffer between the federal regulatory folks and some of the companies that are doing business. I'm not pleased with some of the mitigation extractions that they require, because those dollars, they come out of our pocket as well. We're in this together, and so when they demand certain in mitigation price tag, which seemed to be pretty arbitrary to me. I'm not sure that I did ask her today. I said, if the state had ownership of some of the infrastructure for which you are asking mitigation dollars from the companies, you would not be asking mitigation dollars from the state of Alaska, would you? And she seemed to think she would. I asked her for another example of anywhere else in the United States where they extract mitigation dollars from state government, and she wasn't aware of one, but was going to look into that. So my point is, Alex, is that there may be a place for the state to come alongside the companies and do similar to, as I mentioned before, similar to what we did in the Red Dog mine with the toll road and that kind of infrastructure. We have to do everything we can to assure the companies that are here and that we want to be here, want to come here, that we'll be beside them in these processes.
So you're hopeful with NPRA the state wouldn't get dinged as bad with mitigation measures?
Perhaps not. Hardly
involved in the project, though.
Yep.
And oil production increase options, what are those? Is that one of them?
That's one of them. I mean, certainly NPRA is a significant opportunity, and I'm concerned if this signals a new trend. I guess I'll put it that way. That we will not stand for. And I think it's I'm just about 55 days now, maybe 60 days, and I was told over the weekend it's unusual to put out a joint press release from the delegation in the governor's office, and it's rarely happens, and this was one. There's no daylight between us on this issue. We all see absolutely eye to eye, and we will work collectively to address this.
So we're talking a lot about government and the people right now who are involved in what's going on. What's your message to the people of Alaska out there that are going to hear this and be very concerned, very nervous about the potential here? This is we're at point A, and we still have things to pass before this could ever become a reality. So I guess, what's sort of your thinking as to how this is going to progress?
Well, I mean, I think Alaskans should be pleased that you have House and Senate leadership, the Office of the Governor, U.S. senators and congressmen all lined up. That I can't speak for the House and Senate majority. I don't want to overstep on that, but they were certainly supportive today, and we're clear they're talking for themselves. They couldn't talk about it for their whole caucus. But so I think that the good message is that we don't have a division here as far as on our delegation and on the state level of moving forward, and so I think that's sometimes this may be the final straw for us as far as frustration of saying, we've tried it every other way, and I'm going to aggressively reach out to other states. And I watched the Governor Bobby Jindal in Louisiana some years ago get into an issue with the federal regulatory agency on something he needed to do for his state, and he did it, and they didn't do a thing. I'm not saying we're going to be reckless, but we're going to be vocal, and we're going to bring other states together to say, this is just absolutely wrong. And I think they'll be sympathetic. And I think other states have had similar situations. So I think Alaskans should be encouraged that they see this is not, this isn't brand new as far as the issue about restrictions on ANWR. It's one more layer of restriction over a bunch of other layers of restrictions that have been there. And I told her today, I said, Madam Secretary, I heard a lot of the arguments she's making now before we built the Trans-Alaska Oil Pipeline. I personally heard those arguments about all the terrible things were going to happen if that oil pipeline was built. All the disruption it was going to create. It disrupted us with an education system, with a healthcare system, with communities that had, revenue share, and we had an economy out of it. So I said, I'm not sympathetic to your concerns and whatnot. So this is our second. We've been through this once before. And we'll pull together and we'll win this as well. So actually, Alaskans should be encouraged, I think, because when you get the force of the legislature, the governor's office, our delegations all in the pushing in the same direction, I think some things are going to happen.
We're having audio issues, sir.
Are we online?
We are online, but because this was put together, excuse me, at the last minute.
Oh, okay.
I think the audio quality.
Hello, is anyone still there? Okay, I'm gonna try to move the phone closer to the governor so you could hear him and he could hear your questions too.
Because that small thing is the microphone.
This right here?
That should be, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, first question.
Governor, this is Steve with Reuters. Can you please review briefly what you said about submitting an invoice?
What I said was I need to know who to send an invoice to for our cost of providing governmental services in Alaska. If they're going to take if they're going to take away our livelihood in the private sector, if someone came in, the government came in and did what they did to another business, that's how it would work in the legal process. You take away someone's livelihood, you owe something. So I was not being completely facetious when I said, our cost of education and healthcare are the two biggest drivers in our budget. So I just need to know who to send that bill to if they're going to take our future revenue projections off the table. And so I was not being.
Becky Bohr with the Associated Press. You mentioned that this was one more layer of restrictions on top of another, but there are a number of people who think that this is an area that should be protected. When you talk about livelihood, what do you see in terms of potential, in terms of taxes, in terms of development that you believe is critical to leaving the coastal plain on the table versus protecting it?
I think there are ways of taking those into consideration. The concerns. I mean, the calving grounds of the porcupine caribou herd. There's ways we can take that into consideration, and we would take that into consideration. But to completely, take everything off the table without any sort of opportunity to have that discussion, I think is wrong. And we're Alaskans. We're not going to do something that's going to be disruptive or damaging to our environment or to that area. But goodness sakes, I mean, as far as the area that we're talking about, and as far as the vastness of ANWR itself, we're talking about a fairly small area, and so I think, yes, of course, would we work with and be a process involved? Of course there would be. Would we take local input of those concerns? Of course we would, as we have in the past.
Next question, please identify yourself and the organization you're with. Anyone else online?
This is Monty Bonner, Channel 11 TV in Fairbanks. John, not a question for the governor, but just a question about, you said you were going to put up video afterwards?
Yes, it'll be available on the website. We'll email it out.
Okay, the reason I ask is somebody has been constantly typing, and I don't think I have any useful audio.
Okay, we'll get it to you later, Bonte. Next question?
Yeah, can I talk about that? This is Matt Ernst, on for the question.
Yes.
Just for the governor, I think in your press release this morning you said, and I apologize if the question's already been asked, I also was having trouble hearing, but in the press release this morning, you said you were considering accelerating options to increase exploration and production on state-owned land. Can you elaborate on that? What specifically are you talking about there?
And that is the process by where the opportunity for the state to be involved in some of the infrastructure on the North Slope, be it roads, bridges, or those kinds of things that we may be able to expedite the process in a responsible way. When I met with the president on December 5th, he made reference to a project that was done in Florida that the permitting process was expedited from a 7-year process to a 1-year process. So I listened carefully to that and thanked him for that, and I want to see ways that we can help expedite processes. It takes years and years and years to get infrastructure permitted on the North Slope. Is there a role for the state of Alaska in that process? Not necessarily build it and they'll come, but we're collaborative with them, and the companies that want to use it are more than happy to participate in paying for it.
Just to follow up with that, the other part of that statement, I think you had referred to the ways you were looking to these areas. You said the state could benefit on the short term and the long term for more oil and gas development. I mean, can you describe how you were looking or have been looking at these ANWR areas as areas that really, like, how long realistically is the time frame where the state could really start seeing revenues from those lands if they were opened up? Because it seems like it's not that wouldn't necessarily be in a time frame where it would really help with the current budget problem, is it?
Actually, I think it could. I mean, I've heard the number I've heard, which is I think horrifically long, but I'll say it. I don't believe it, but it's 10 years. There could be 10 years before you'd actually see revenue from that. But as we participated in the infrastructure process, we could see additional construction activity. As we cut down on our own budget, the private sector through us or with us could see additional activity. So it might not be building new schools and libraries and museums, but we're building roads and bridges and infrastructure. So it's still a building process that we're involved in. So that's the immediate side, and then the long-term side obviously is the revenue associated with what comes from that.
Next question. Anyone else on the line? Okay.
Governor, this is Becky at AP again. Just to be clear, on federal lands, like potentially ANWR or NPRA, the state does still get its production tax from revenue produced. Is that right?
Well, that's another sore point. I guess might as well get them all on the table. It used to be 90-10. We would get 90, they get 10. Now it's moved down to 50-50. And if I got that right, Kara?
Production taxes, we would get the same.
The royalty has shifted. It used to be a 90-10 royalty. Years ago, it was shifted to 50-50 with the federal government, but we still get the same production taxes. That's right. Thank you, Kara. And that wasn't the original deal either, by the way. It was initially set up as a 90-10. You know, the Statehood Compact, well, I don't know, I assume everybody's familiar with it. Let me just say a couple words about the Statehood Compact. We became a state. We were not, everybody wanted us to become a state in Washington, D.C. And the reason for it, they said, we may not be able to afford you. You're a long ways away from the rest of us, and you're not going to get all the infrastructure we have. So therefore, the land we transfer to you, you cannot sell the resource in the ground. And it's in the Statehood Compact. And said but the penalty is if you sell the resource in the ground, then the land reverts back to the federal government. It's a reversionary clause, a fairly strong reversionary clause. So that's why we have the leases the way we do it, why we do the leasing the way we do it, because the federal government requires that. So that's I don't find any other state in the union that has that kind of arrangement, and so that's what makes us the owner state that we are. I mean, when Governor Hickel talked about it, it wasn't just a myth. I mean, it's laid out pretty clearly. So we are the rancher in Texas whose land is being explored on. We're the rancher because we own the resource in the ground. Anybody buys land in Alaska, look at your title report, and it says there's a reservation on mineral rights, and so we can't sell the mineral rights in the ground. They can be developed, so we just do it differently, and so because of that, the plan was we had to live off of our resources. Okay, and then over time, they'd taken away 100 million acres at a time. It doesn't take long before we're down to trying to make a living off a pretty small piece of ground. So I'm sorry if I sound a little frustrated today, but I am. I'm very frustrated at this. I mean, it's not a shot across the bow. It's a little more serious than that. And so I'm. Should have heard Senator Bukowski yesterday. She was pretty frustrated as well. So.
Next question, please identify yourself and the organization you're with.
Very good. Thank you all very much for being here on a beautiful Sunday. Nice to.
Can I ask one more question?
Last question, Alex.
This doesn't, in terms of development for oil and gas, doesn't seem to have any real practical effect in my mind from the restriction that's already there, which requires congressional action anyway before we're allowed to develop for oil and gas. So I'm just kind of curious what regulations are being added, what additional restrictions are being added with this.
It's now being treated as though it was a wilderness designation, what they're asking for. So that makes it, I mean, just don't even think about asking on someone a wilderness designation. It's interesting that what they put out, though, they said they wanted this treated like the Grand Canyon and Yosemite. I'm going to put together an inventory of how much commerce goes on in the Grand Canyon and the Yosemite. I think it's quite a bit more than goes on in ANWR. But you want to be, I'd love to be treated like the Grand Canyon and Yosemite as far as the kind of commerce that goes on there responsibly. So. But what it does, it just sends one more message that here's where we're going with this, and there'll be absolutely no hope of development, and so that's a concern. What caused me concern. So.
Paul Decker of DNR's Oil and Gas Division is here if you guys have technical questions, and Karen Moriarty with AOGA is here as well if you guys have any more questions.
Very good.
I mean,
Put you on the spot, Kara.
sure.
Sorry.
Yeah, I had so much fun at your inaugural ball, I lost my voice last night. So, thank you, Governor, for the invitation to be here today. I'm going to go a step further than the governor, and it's beyond frustrating. It's offensive. Over 92% of the refuge is permanently off limits. 92%. So the deal that the governor talked about, ANWR, said 8% could be designated for oil and gas development. 8%, and we gave up more land to agree to that so that we would have no more wilderness. So it's offensive to us that they would take this measure that would start treating this sliver of the refuge as off limits to taking it all off limits. I've talked to Secretary Jewell once in her term, It was shortly after she came to Alaska, and she met with our board and the Resource Development Council board. And so we were talking about, access to offshore and the MPRA management plan and the fact that this 8% still isn't open in ANWR. And she said to us, a group of 40 to 50 Alaska business leaders, all Alaskans, and said, you should just be happy with what you have. And now she doesn't even want us to have what we did have. So for us, it's very offensive. Secondly, I think for Alaskans, the governor, the congressional delegation, and the House and Senate leadership should be commended because all they're doing is representing their constituents' interests. We've been asking about ANWR and what Alaskans think about ANWR for 25 years. And time again, 4 out of 5 Alaskans support opening the coastal plain of ANWR. It's right next door to where we already have development. And frankly, Governor, I don't think it would take 10 years because we now have Point Thompson's going to be production, maybe even by the end of this year, early of 2016. The state just had the 3rd largest successful lease sale, and some of the state land that was leased that independent companies like Kalis are going after to shoot seismic for this year is just south of ANWR. It's on the eastern side of the slope. So we know the oil is there, and I just think that the governor and the rest of our leadership should be commended, and Alaskans should be outraged. We need to remind the American public that we know how to do it. We know how to do it right. As far as mitigation measures go, we already do that. The industry leads in technology identifying polar bear dens and moving ice roads miles around polar bear dens in the wintertime using top-notch infrared technology. Point Thompson, they painted their docks a certain color because that's what the native people thought would be the least intrusive. We do that every single day in our business, and we would do it no differently in ANWR. So for us, it just sends a terrible signal regardless of what comes out on the OCS lease sale, and if they decide to put further restrictions on MPRA development, it just sends a signal that Alaska is not open for business, and we know that with this governor and this congressional delegation and this leadership, that is not true. So from our standpoint, like I said, the bottom line, I'll go one step further than the governor, and I'll just call it offensive. Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Karen.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you very much again for giving us part of your Sunday, and there'll be stay tuned. There'll be more. I'm sure there'll be more in the coming week about this. And again, Senator Giesel, thank you very much for being here. And we'll short notice, big turnout. Those that thought it was yesterday, we apologize. I just don't like to do something where I have not actually spoken with the individual I'm looking at talking to. So first-hand information is good. So, and Kara, thank you very much for being here.
Welcome.
Thank you.